Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest impacting our community in a positive way. Today I welcome Pathway School Middle School teacher Kelley Vaca. The Laguna Hills Christian Private School educates and equips students who struggle in a traditional classroom by providing them with skills and strategies to grow academically, socially, and spiritually. Thank you, Kelley, for being on Impact OC.
You're welcome. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Kelley, please explain how the teachers are able to use programs and research-based strategies to meet the needs of students that learn differently.
Absolutely. A lot of our students struggle with things like dyslexia, ADHD, auditory processing issues, executive functioning, organizational challenges, and some of them are on the spectrum with ASD. And so we create a program that is uniquely designed to address all of their learning differences. We have students who know their learning style, so we make sure that our teaching addresses the visual learners that we have, the kinesthetic learners, the auditory learners. Our teachers are adept at presenting similar programs with being able to explain things many different ways to the students to address their needs. We offer programs to enrich students who might have an affinity for science or in technology or in math or in reading. So they are challenged at their very high levels. And those students who struggle get additional intervention programs to make sure that all those foundational skills are taught and reinforced as well.
What kinds of students do you have?
We have students from 3rd through 8th grade. We have a 12-to-1 classroom ratio. We have students from many different backgrounds with many different learning struggles, but somehow we are able to provide an enriching environment, kind of a family feel where every student feels appreciated, acknowledged, encouraged, and they're able to be successful with the approach that we have at Pathway.
Now, you talked about the different kinds of learning disabilities that people have. Why don't you go over them?
Absolutely. So students who struggle with dyslexia have a really challenging time often in a public school classroom with math and reading.
What is dyslexia?
Dyslexia is when students reverse their letters or numbers, and they have trouble sometimes too just seeing things on a page and understanding it, and also kind of processing it. So we provide things that have a lot of visuals, a lot of hands-on learning to make sure that the things that they're struggling with, that they're able to be successful. Some of the other issues are executive functioning, and really what that means is that organizational piece. What a student would look like in a traditional classroom who has an executive functioning issue, they would have the binder with papers all over the place, not being able to find their homework. And so we provide an organizational system that helps students write down their homework and make sure that they're able to be successful with organizing their papers. We have an occupational therapist on hand who also helps make sure that the scatteredness comes into order, and again gives the students skills and strategies to be able to maintain an organized binder and make sure that they're turning in their homework on time.
So why don't you run through what a typical day is for a student that may have one of these learning disabilities?
Of course. We have a long language arts block in the morning. It's about an hour and a half long. And during that time, we have a reading program, we have a writing program, a spelling and grammar as well. And during that particular class block, there's a lot of differentiation and instruction going on. And really what that means is last year, for example, I teach junior high, and I had a handful of students reading at a high school level and a handful that were about at a 5th grade level. So within that classroom block, the high learners were getting challenged and learning on a very high level with a lot of application and high school level ideas, whereas my 5th grade reading level kids were having things a lot more broken down where they're able to build on those foundations. We have differentiated spelling activities for kids who are strong in spelling and those who struggle. So there's a lot of whole group instruction, but there's a lot of differentiation, and the kids just kind of just accept that we're all a little different, and there are some areas that students are really strong in and some who struggle, and it goes very smoothly. Then they'll have a block of time where they're broken into a lot smaller groups. They will go to a PE class and have occupational therapy as well. There's a block of time for that. And then there's math instruction. So again, we have students, I've taught kids up to algebra and geometry who again have an affinity for math. And there are some that just struggle with those basic skills, and they're able to be in intervention classes with a class size ratio of about 2-to-1 to make sure that that's getting built up. Then our afternoon time, we have all sorts of really fun activities. The kids do hands-on science, they have drama, they have art, they have social skills classes, they have technology classes, and Bible class, and those just kind of fill their afternoon. And those that have additional intervention needs will also see an intervention specialist during that time as well.
You talk about differentiation activities. Can you go over them?
Sure. So for example, if I'm teaching a history lesson and I know that I have students who need a lot of visuals and a lot of hands-on activities, what I'll do is I'll combine that into a lesson. So if we're doing a vocabulary lesson and we've read a chapter in our little history lesson, they have an opportunity to do a fill in the blank for the vocabulary words, to use an illustration, and it's a kind of a lift the flap kind of activity. So it kind of addresses all those different needs. The same is true with spelling, for example. The students who struggle in spelling, they're tested and assessed. We assess our kids 3 times a year, and that lets us know every step of the way where they are, if they're improving. We get to celebrate those successes, and for students who are still struggling, we're able to kind of reevaluate if there a different reading intervention program that might benefit them, or is there a different math program that might help them as well.
What is the most prominent kind of learning difficulty student you'd have? Like, is it ADHD or
D?
ADHD, yeah, right, or autism?
You know what? It's really an eclectic group. I can't really say that there's one that stands out more than another. And so as teachers, we just become very adept at just providing such a breadth of teaching experience and a repertoire where we just know that we have to make sure that we're addressing all those different learners and all their different needs. And the beautiful thing too is in the morning during our language arts block, we also have an instructional assistant who can provide additional one-on-one. Let's say if a student is pacing really slow and needs a little bit more time or needs something explained even further, the instructional assistant can pull that student aside and work with them one-on-one, which is great as well.
In order to help the students, it takes great staff. Explain the staff in order to reach these students and make them be successal.
Yes. Well, we have a current enrollment of 42 at our school, and we have 16 staff members. And so our staff all our lead teachers are fully credentialed, many with special education degrees and master's degrees. We have an intervention specialist, and she has her special education credential as well as years of experience in both public and private. And all of our teachers and staff meet we meet several times a year as a whole staff, but as a smaller group, we meet on a weekly basis to evaluate the needs of our students. So if one of the students is having a struggle at home, or they're having maybe a interpersonal struggle with another student, it's really great that we're such a close staff that we're able to come up with strategies and address those struggles to make sure that everybody is succeeding.
And I take it the family's involved.
Very much so, very much so. We have a parent-teacher foundation who gathers and who meets, and we are really good at communicating with parents almost on a daily level in some cases, or weekly level, and we really do have a really strong family-school bond. So parents don't hesitate if there's an issue just to come right to us, and they just know that we're going to handle it with a lot of love and grace.
What did you do during COVID?
We were extremely blessed. Well, when COVID first hit, we had to go to online learning, and we took a crash course in Google Classroom and how to do Zoom. But this past year, we were very blessed that because we're a small school and we have a very unique group of and a population of students, we were able to apply and receive a waiver for in-person learning. So with all the different safety measures and precautions in place, we were able to be in-person learning this past school year.
And you have a homework club. How does that work?
In the past, we had a homework club, which provides extra assistance after school, helping with study skills and strategies, and also providing students with an opportunity to get their homework completed with a little extra help if they need it, kind of take that pressure off the parents at home, which sometimes can be a bit of a struggle. And we've had to put it on hold because of COVID, but we are definitely hoping that moving forward to reinstate that program.
What about program enrichment?
We do a lot of program, and let me ask for clarification in terms of
Their drama.
Oh, yes. So we have a drama program, of course, with the students, and they love it because it allows them to, again, find their affinity. If they're maybe struggling academically and math is really hard, all of a sudden maybe they found the stage. And we have a lot of budding musicians and actors and actresses among us. We also have an art program. In the past couple of years, our art program has gone kind of along like art through the ages. And our art teacher is very gifted and was able to kind of connect art with history with the students. With technology, the lead teachers teach that as well. And this past year, I was working with a Pixar program, and they were able to learn how to do some basic and simple animation. We have a specialized science teacher who also comes in, and she does really, really fun hands-on learning activities with the students as well. And I think I covered all of those.
If a person were to walk into a classroom,
Yes.
would they see a difference between a regular classroom in a public school versus what you see at the Pathway School?
Yes. One thing that makes our classrooms really unique, not only is the small size, but it's each desk and area is very individualized to the students. So what I mean by that is there are some students who can sit at a more traditional desk, but maybe their chair, they like a firm chair, so they have a hard plastic chair. Some prefer a padded chair, so they have a padded chair. We have little stools that kind of rotate for kids who are a little squirrely in their seat. We have little footboards that they can put under their desk if they're to kind of move their feet around. We have a standing desk. I have one student in my classroom, he learns best he's an auditory learner, and he needs to wander and listen as I speak and as instruction happens. And so he has a standing desk, and he has this, we call it his little zip code. He has a little area where he can kind of wander around. And so it looks very different just because you can just tell by looking at just the students and where they are in the classroom and how the classroom is organized, that it very much is individualized, and again, kind of creates the little personal environment for them to be able to learn.
So you said the ratio was 12 students per one teacher, right?
Yes.
So they're able to understand each student to know how to reach each student with a particular subject at hand.
Yes. So again, our assessments that we do several times a year help us with that. The students take a learning style test, so they know what their learning style is, as well the teachers as well. And so everything is very much organized and specifically done in such a very intentional way to make sure that they're getting exactly what they need.
Now, when they leave the school, what happens? Do they have it all in their mind so that they can go to a regular school again?
Very good question. One of my favorite parts about teaching 8th grade is to launch them out of the nest, as I like to say, and to prepare them for high school. And we do this by filling their toolbox. So they know what their personal strengths and weaknesses are. They know the areas in which they need to advocate. What I mean by that is when students, for example, take a test in my classroom, some need it read aloud to them and they process a little slower, which means they need more thinking time to come up with the answer. They need the answers read to them maybe more than once. And so it very much might be a slower test taking environment for a student or two. Some of the other ones who don't like it loud will advocate and say, I need to take my clipboard in the hallway and take my test in the hallway. And so moving on to high school, they know how they learn, and they know what they need to be successful. And they've gone off, and we've launched kids public school, private school. There's not just one place they kind of land. It's a variety of places just based on their needs moving forward after leaving Pathway.
Do they need to get special needs kinds of equipment in order to succeed as they move on?
A lot of our students will have an IEP, which is done through the public schools.
And explain what an IEP is.
An IEP is individual instructional plan, and it is done through the school district, and it just they do a lot of assessing of students. Again, they have their own ways of addressing what their strengths and weaknesses are and specific needs of the students moving forward. So often we don't do them at our school because, again, it's through the public school and we're private, but we do take that data and we make sure that we're addressing the needs of the students on an IEP, and then moving forward, that will follow them into high school. And many high schools will have accommodations for the kids, things like more time on test and taking the test in a quiet environment. Maybe their homework is modified. We don't give a lot of homework at our school. My students is the exception because I'm getting them ready for high school, but it's still not I think they maybe have an hour or two at the junior high level, but other than that, it's a very limited number. And even, for example, like a math homework assignment at Pathway School, they might have 4 to 5 questions. Middle school might be 10. And so some of those modifications, or they're not doing as many problems, that sometimes moves forward with them to high school. So that way they're successful there as well.
What about the costs?
Our current tuition is $24,800. And this includes all the materials, all the supplies. Again, we're very specialized and we have such a small class ratio. 12-to-1 really is when that would be a full classroom. Typically the classrooms are at around 9 to 10, depending. We do have an annual fundraiser called Pathway of Hope, and last year, even despite COVID, we were able to raise $65,000, and a lot of that goes toward tuition because the cost of tuition for the student does not cover the cost of having the student in our school, because there are so many very skilled and credentialed people who are in helping in the school and with the kids.
So how did you manage with this fundraiser? What did you do?
We did a lot of online giving programs. The students made individual postcards that kind of told their little Pathway story, sent it out to friends and family members, and that's for the majority of how we were able to raise that money.
Do the students acknowledge that they're in a different kind of school as opposed to a public school?
They do. The number one thing I think that the students feel when they're at our school is they feel that sense of acceptance. A lot of them will write an essay, and even when the 8th graders graduate, they write an 8th grade graduation speech, and they're very reflective. They reflect on what their life was like before coming to Pathway, and a lot of them will admit to being bullied because they were slower and learned differently, and school moved too fast for them. That's what they'll say. And they see in Pathway a place where they, again, feel safe, they feel accepted, they feel encouraged, and they just feel kind of free to be who they are and really embrace their learning differences. I'm the first one to tell the students, I am not a good auditory learner, so if you want me to remember something, you need to write it on a Post-it note. And we joke because I usually have a long line of Post-it notes of things I need to remember. And so I think, too, with the teachers being honest about our shortcomings as well, and the kids know everybody has something about them that just is a little different. There's our strengths and our weaknesses, and that's just part of who God made us to be.
And they're probably gaining social skills that they wouldn't ordinarily get in a traditional school because
Definitely.
of the ratio of teacher to students.
Yes, there is that ratio, and we also have a social skills program and curriculum in place. And this past year, the way I taught my students social skills was we would use a small little vignette and talk about different perspectives. How was this student feeling in the situation? How was the other student feeling? What are the list of steps that you would take to kind of rectify the situation? For example, somebody wanted to copy off your homework on the way to school because they didn't finish it, and just kind of teaching them appropriate ways to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and not be so reactive, because a lot of our kids, just as they're learning and gaining their social skills, can react very quickly without stopping to think. So it's just allowing them the opportunity to, act out different scenarios and vignettes and be able to gain those skills.
What kinds of occupations have some of the students moved on to?
That is a really good question. A lot of our students, I should say a lot, but there's a good handful that have gone on to four-year colleges and universities. A lot of them will start at a community college level and move forward from there. A lot of them go into retail and those types of occupations.
And what are the benefits for you to be in this type of work environment as opposed to a traditional school environment?
That's such a good question. What I love the best, I love a lot of things, but what just makes my heart just sing is just being able to pour into students and love them with the love of Jesus and embrace what makes them different and embrace their struggles and being able to come alongside and coach them and encourage them and when they just can get frustrated or overwhelmed, just to be able to, put a gentle hand on their shoulder and say, it'll be okay. How can I help you? What can I do? What do you need? And all as is true with most of the teachers at our school, we typically will have kids for 2 years because we have multi-age classrooms. I teach 7th and 8th graders. And so this past year, out of my 9, 6 graduated. And I'd had them for 2 years. And so when I talk to people about my kids, I always have to say, are you talking about your children in your class or your actual biological children? Because there's just such a love and an appreciation and such a family feel. And again, just to be able to create an environment where they're successful and they're safe and they're excited to come to school, that just blesses me beyond belief.
I would imagine because the teaching is geared to their level,
Yes.
they're able to really excel.
Yes. That's for sure. And two, being able to, especially with small class sizes in math, for example, being able to do silly songs with them and do certain things. And I've have one student in particular who I've been tutoring. He's now in high school, and there will be a math song or a math concept, and I'll bring up the song. He goes, "Oh, don't sing it again. I already know how that goes." So just again, being able to make things fun for them and knowing their personalities and just how quick they are just to laugh at things and have fun while they're learning, again, really sets Pathway apart.
Well, thank you, Pathway School middle school teacher Kelley Vaca, for being on Impact OC. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Dawn Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.